Hello everyone, Silix Orion here. Today I just wanted to show you a piece of computing history that you might not have seen before. Um, so you know how modern computers have graphics cards, right? Simply because they are faster at rendering graphics than a CPU. And if a CPU were to try to render graphics using the CPU cores, it would drastically slow down system performance because CPUs are not optimized for graphics rendering. Well, a similar history can be found in system audio. A similar history can be found in system audio, he says, before spending 5 minutes trying to find a royalty-free image of a motherboard's I/O. Alright, I'm back. So, you know how modern motherboards have audio ports, right? Just straight up on the motherboard. These are driven by the CPU. Older CPUs were not powerful enough to process audio and the desktop at the same time. So, sound cards were a thing. Sound cards were simply expansion boards that process the system audio so that CPU resources could be dedicated to processing other things. This one is the ViBRA 16 by Creative from 1994. As you can see, a few interesting things about this board is that it has expandable memory, and if you were wondering from my RAM video, this is what a SIM slot looks like. Installing memory into it is very similar to a modern laptop SODIMM stick. You can see that the pins are actually pretty, decently small, and not much smaller than memory pins in a modern motherboard, but because they're exposed, they just seem so much smaller. And in fact, I don't know if this RAM stick is actually touching all of them. I'll have to look into that. This is an ISA slot. Not much to say about it. It's an industry standard architecture slot, because that was very much a standard at the time. CD audio in header. We've got the main processor, and we have another chip that, cough cough, I definitely know what this does. Where did my window go? Yeah, I definitely know what this chip does. This is a E-MU/Creative Systems EMU 8000 music synthesis chip, famously used on vintage 1990 sound cards like the Sound Blaster AWE32 and AWE64. The core advanced wave effects AWE synthesizer and DSP engine, designed by EMU Systems and manufactured under Creative Labs. It is responsible for 32 voice wavetable MIDI synthesis and handling sound font technology. Yeah, look at how smart I am, guys. I knew that right off the top of my head, right? I'm a genius. Anyway, here we have another header, which can't read that, so let me actually grab the board, and read it right here. That... Okay, hang on, I actually was not... this just, came... This is actually an IDE header, which, if you don't know, let me go back to my picture of a motherboard. If you don't know what an IDE header is, think ye old SATA connection. This is an IDE header. This is what you connect hard drives, optical drives. Up here is a floppy header. IDE is kind of like a bigger floppy header. It's a ribbon cable. So you know how modern SATA stands for Serial ATA, Advanced Technology Attachment. Okay, yeah. So anyway, so you know how modern SATA cables are Serial ATA, Serial Advanced Technology Attachment is what that stands for, which I definitely knew off the top of my head. IDE cables are actually parallel ATA. And basically what that means is instead of sending one bit at a time, like you would in a serial cable, IDE cables send, because you can see this has so many pins, and on the motherboard, the header has a lot of pins. This is because it sends data in a ton of channels. Each one of these pins, well, some of them are power, some of them are, most of them are data. Each one of these pins is a different data stream. And you would think, wow, that's incredible. We can send so much more data. However, the problem with parallel, especially in older computers, is that the... How can I put this? Instead of sending one bit at a time, which, I mean, it's easy. With parallel, you have a few issues. Like, if you send multiple streams of data, and one of them is lagging behind for whatever reason, resistance, inductance in the wire, capacitance, crosstalk, for whatever reason, a single bit lags behind the rest of them. Any of that interference slows down the transmission, because the drive and the CPU cannot understand the data until every bit gets there. It's to the point that an IDE drive is actually slower than an SD card. And if you don't know how slow an SD card is, it's really slow. That is as opposed to modern SATA, which is serial ATA. Sending one bit at a time sounds inefficient. However, because there is no crosstalk or interference, you can send those bits extremely fast, which ups SATA's data transfer speed to, it's like 700 megabytes a second, I believe, is the maximum. But hello, VoiceOver Silix Orion here again, because this bozo on screen spent like 6 minutes explaining what crosstalk is. Basically, crosstalk is when the magnetic fields around a signal transferring wire interfere with other magnetic fields, which cause bits to be lost and other unwanted interference to occur. You don't have that with serial connections, because there's only one data stream. Because, sure, you have other data streams from, like, the RAM. Crosstalk really isn't a thing on serial connections, because there's only one data stream, is what I'm trying to say. Anyway, we've gotten a bit off topic, so let me get back to... Where is my button? Let me get back to the sound card. I don't think there's much more interesting to say about it, but... yeah. I do not know why the sound card has an IDE interface. It could be to interface with, optical drives, like I said, like a CD, but we already have CD audio in right here. So, I genuinely do not know what this IDE interface is for, and I might have to try using it. Try it out. One more thing, before I go. If we look at the back here, well, first thing, we can see the sticker, Creative Labs Inc. model number CT3930. We can see the FCC ID, serial number, appearance. Wow, that's a long serial number. Sound Blaster 32. We can see the quality control sticker from 1995. I find that quite interesting. And one quick note, you might notice that these traces up here are kinda a little bit, mangled. I am genuinely not sure how that happened, but as far as I know, I've looked at it close up. It doesn't seem to have cut any traces. So this card should still work. There's some more damage down here, but like I said, I don't think any of the traces are cut. The last thing I want to talk about is the I/O, which I have exactly one image of. Here we have, from top to bottom, line in, microphone in, line out, speaker out, and this thing. Um, on the board, it's labeled, or on the shield, it's labeled joystick, which this might be an interface for a controller. Um, I genuinely do not know. Let me Google that real quick. The joystick port on an old sound card is formerly known as the gain port or MIDI port. It is typically a 15-pin female D-sub connector, often colored gold or yellow, that was a standard way to connect input devices and musical instruments to a PC before the widespread adoption of USB. So, this is just... So I believe this is for, that chip that I was so genius and totally knew the purpose of before. Um, I believe that this input port is for inputting like musical instruments and stuff, like Google so astutely noted. So that's kind of just about it. That's really all I have to say about it. Um, Please let me know if you found this interesting. Silix Orion signing out.